In this video, we're going to multiply and divide rational expressions. Rational expression is when the numerator and a denominator is polynomial. And when you simplify rational expression, let's say you have a times c over b times c. That will equal to a over b because c's will cancel out. For example, let's first try the simple fraction problems. Let's say you got 20 over 4. Well, 20 over 4 is the same thing as 5 times 4 over 1 times 4. So 4 will cancel out, and you get 5 over 1, which is 5. Now you got to be careful. The common mistake is this: a plus c over b plus c is not a over b. Oftentimes, students just cancel out the c and they think that this is a over b. So be careful with that. So for example, let's say you got 5 plus 4 over 2 plus 4. This is the same thing as 9 over 6, which is 3 over 2. What happened when you cancel out the 4? You get 5 over 2, and 5 over 2 is not equal to 3 over 2. So be careful. Let's say you want to simplify this rational expression. This is 2 times the quantity x plus 2, and you got quantity x plus 2 times quantity x plus 1. You could cancel out these two. So you end up getting 2 over x plus 1. Let's simplify this rational expression. In order to do that, we need to factor. So you get quantity x minus 6 times quantity x plus 2 on top. And on the bottom, you get, this is the difference of squares, so you get x minus 2 times x plus 2. By the way, notice the denominator goes to 0 when x equals 2 and when x equals negative 2. So we need to say that x cannot equal to 2 and x cannot equal to negative 2, because when x equals 2 or negative 2, it makes the denominator go to 0. And when the denominator is 0, the whole thing is undefined. It doesn't exist. So now, what can we cancel out here? We can cancel out x plus 2, x plus 2. So we end up getting x minus 6 over x minus 2. And be careful, don't cancel out x and x. This is x minus 6 and x minus 2. So we cannot just cancel out the x and x. You can only cancel out when they're connected by multiplications. And what do you do when you multiply rational expressions? A over b times c over d will be a times c over b times d. You have to note that b cannot equal to 0 and d cannot equal to 0, because when they are, this whole thing is undefined because denominator will be 0. So let's multiply these two. First of all, note that x cannot equal to 0 and y cannot equal to 0, because when they are, the denominator will be 0. So when you multiply this, what's 8 times 7? That's 56. X cubed times x to the 4 is x to the 7. Y times y cubed is y to the 4th. Don't forget there's an invisible 1 over here. All over 2 times 8, which is 8. I'm sorry, 2 times 4, which is 8. And then x, and then y to the 3rd. So what is that? That's going to be 56 over 8 times x to the 7th over x times y to the 4th over y to the 3rd, which is 56 divided by 8 is 7. X to the 7 over x is x to the 6. Y to the 4 over y cubed is y. So that will be your final answer. Now another way of doing it is this. This is a longer way of doing it. Let's break it down. What is 8? 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. And x cubed is x times x times x. And you got x to the 4, so that's another 4 x's. And you got y and y cubed, that's 4 y's. All over, you got 2, and you got 2 times 2. I forgot the 7 here. So you get 2 times 2 times 2, 2 times 4, and you got 1x, and you have y times y times y. So let's cancel that out. 2 cancels out. So 3 2's cancels out. You got 1x canceling out, and 3 y's. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So what's left over? You end up getting 7, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 x's, and then you have 1 y. So either way, you get the same thing, but obviously this takes longer than the earlier one. Before we talk about next example, let's review. If you have a quantity 1 minus x, and if I want to change the order, is this same thing as x minus 1? It's not. These two are not the same. For example, let's say you got 1 minus 4. Is that equal to 4 minus 1? It's not, because this is negative 3, and what is that? That's 3. However, if it was like 1 plus x, if you're adding, yes, this is the same thing as x plus 1. However, if it is 1 minus x, you got to be careful. So what you need to do is, you got to take out negative, and then change the order. X minus 1. Now these two are the same. Because what's negative times x? Negative x. What's negative times negative 1? Positive 1. So you get 1 minus x. So these two are the same thing. So if you have, let's say, y minus x, and if you want to change the order to x minus y, then you need to take out the negative. Then these two are equivalent. Let's multiply these two rational expressions. So what we need to do here is we got to take out the greatest common factor, which is 3x. You end up getting 1 minus x. Over, how do you factor this trinomial? It's going to be x plus 5 and then x minus 1 times. What about this trinomial? It's x plus 5, x minus 4. All over 3x. So what can we cancel out here? 3x on top, 3x on the bottom. X plus 5 on top, x plus 5 on the bottom. Now what about 1 minus x and x minus 1? They're not the same yet. However, if we take out the negative from 1 minus x, you get negative quantity x minus 1 times x minus 4 over quantity x minus 1. Now you could cancel out x minus 1, x minus 1. So you get negative quantity x minus 4, which is the same thing as negative x plus 4. Now, you know that the denominator cannot be x cannot equal to negative 5, x cannot equal to 1, and x cannot equal to 0. Because when x equals negative 5, 1, or 0, those numbers make denominator go to 0. So these are not part of the domain. Now let's multiply this to rational expressions. First of all, we can make that into a fraction by putting 1 on the bottom. And this is already factored out. We cannot factor this. What about x cubed minus 27? That's a difference of cubes. And do you remember how to factor difference of cubes? A cubed minus B cubed. That is going to be quantity A minus B times A squared plus AB plus B squared. So if you look at x cubed minus 27, this is the same thing as quantity x to the third minus quantity 3 to the third. So your A is x and your B is 3. Using substitution, you get x minus 3 times x squared plus 3x plus 9. So you get x plus 2 over quantity x minus 3 times x squared plus 3x plus 9 times quantity x squared plus 3x plus 9 all over 1. So these two cancels out. So you're left with x plus 2 over x minus 3. And what do you do when you divide fractions? It's a over b divided by c over d. Well, first, we know that b cannot equal to 0, and d cannot equal to 0. And when you divide fractions, if you recall, you have to multiply by the reciprocal of c over d, which is d over c. And you end up getting a times d over b times c. Let's divide these two rational expressions. So when you're dividing, what we need to do is 7x over 2x minus 10 times the reciprocal of this, which is x squared minus 11x plus 30 all over x squared minus 6x. Now what we need to do is we need to factor. So you get 7x over the greatest common factor is 2, and you end up with x minus 5 times. What is the factor of this trinomial? You're going to get x minus 5 and x minus 6 all over the greatest common factor here is x, so you get x minus 6. Now we could cancel out x minus 5, x minus 5, x minus 6, x minus 6, and then x and x. So you end up with 7 over 2, and that is your final answer. And let's divide these two rational expressions. So you'll get quantity 6x squared plus x minus 15 over 4x squared times. What is the reciprocal of that? Well, you know that you could rewrite this as 3x squared plus 5x over 1. So the reciprocal of this will be 1 over quantity 3x squared plus 5x. Now let's factor these out. So how do you factor 6x squared plus x minus 15? This is a trinomial, and unfortunately, a is not 1. So what we need to do is we need to multiply 6 and negative 15. So you get negative 90x squared. And what are the factors of negative 90x squared? When you add them up, you get positive x. Negative 9x and positive 10x. So we are going to rewrite this expression. So you get 6x squared minus 9x plus 10x minus 15. And we're going to have to factor in by grouping. So you could factor out 3x. You're left with x minus 3. And you factor out positive 5. I'm sorry, I forgot the 2 here. You get 2x minus 3. So we have a common factor, 2x minus 3, 2x minus 3. So take out 2x minus 3, and you end up with 3x plus 5. So factor of this trinomial is 2x minus 3, 3x plus 5. you cannot factor out 4x squared times 1 over, what is the greatest common factor? X. So you get 3x plus 5. What cancels out here? 3x plus 5 and 3x plus 5. And that's it. So you end up getting 2x minus 3 times 1, which is 2x minus 3, all over 4x to the third. Don't forget the x over here. You got to multiply x and 4x squared. So that will be your final answer.